What's up, golf friends? This is Jim Colton, and this is the Driven Golf Podcast. I'm here as always with the super producer, Joseph K. What's going on, Joseph?
Hey, Jim. It's been a while. Not much. Doing pretty good over here. How are you?
Good. Just this happy St. Patrick's Day to you. So you got a little green logo on your shirt. I'd like to see that. So yeah, we this is episode 40. We made it this far, and in this episode, we have the Vanderbilt men's head golf coach continuing this heater that we've been on of top college coaches, Scott Limbaugh. You've probably seen him around a little bit and maybe have had some interactions with him. Like, what's your take on Limbaugh?
Yeah, Limbaugh comes from the good old state of Alabama. You can learn a lot about the Alabama accent pretty quickly as you talk to him. I've got some family members that are from Alabama, so he just makes you feel at home. He makes you feel comfortable. He makes you feel he's such a welcoming, warm guy to be around. It was funny. I was watching a commercial, and I think the other day, and there was like a boom shakalaka kind of.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
kind of. It just made me instantly think of Limbaugh's dad. So yeah, he's such a great guy and a good leader and someone you wanna rally behind. So yeah, he's awesome.
So I've gotten to know him a little bit over these past like 6 or 9 months or whatever. I would say that he is the most competitive, authentically competitive person I've ever met. And I think that in a lot of ways, he reminds me of myself a little bit, but like amped up to like 12 on the scale. But I think this authenticity, I think is really, really compelling. You've got the standard of excellence, obviously, the school, the golf program, I think under his tutelage has really produced, I think, the most All-Americans, been match play any number of times. And I think after listening to this episode, like it should be no surprise. Like I think like the standard that he holds himself to and the competitive drive and the culture that he's tried to instill in this program, really building it in a lot of ways similar to the Hibble episode, starting kind of from scratch in a lot of ways, but having a lot of good assets at his disposal and knowing that this job could really become, turn the program into an SEC powerhouse. I think that's really what drew him to the job. But yeah, he's a pretty competitive guy. So we actually split this episode into 2 parts because like once you wind him up, he gets going. He's got a lot of great stories to tell. So this one really talks about sort of his rise into coaching and sort of like the Alabama roots that you mentioned and how that really kind of formed who he is today and how he leads. And then he kind of has coached really kind of every ranks of college golf, was an assistant under at Alabama, recruited Justin Thomas, who talks a little bit about what makes JT tick, which I think a lot of people are just interested in hearing that. And then ultimately how he kind of built this Vanderbilt program. So we said it's St. Patrick's Day. The Players Championship just wrapped up earlier today, the Monday playoff. So the other thing I wanted to mention about the Players Championship, I think they highlighted this a little bit during the broadcast. The 40th anniversary of Calvin Peete winning the 1985 Players Championship. Really sort of his signature win of his career. I think he won 12 times on tour. And I know you're a bit younger than me, but even Calvin Pete's maybe a little bit before my time of like being like a real golf fan. But like I always just knew that he was like the most accurate guy on tour. Like I think for 10 years straight, he led the tour in fairways hit. So I knew that, but I didn't really know much about his story or his background. And No Laying Up, Kevin Van Valkenburg joined No Laying Up, I don't know, a year or 2 ago or whatever. And he's really brought this journalistic aspect where they do these deep dives, or he does these deep dives, which are fantastic. And I happened to be on a road trip to Western Kansas. And so I was like stacking these like No Laying Up deep dives, like one after another. He just had another one on Ricky Fowler. But anyways, learned a lot about Calvin Peete, which I didn't know. And he is, and I frankly, I think a lot of people probably have no idea. He he's probably the most unlikely PGA Tour player you could ever imagine. Like one of 19 kids. He basically got tricked into playing golf. His friends like told him they were going to a party, and they showed up at a golf course, and they were just like, well, you got two choices. You could either sit in the car for the next 4 hours, or you can come play golf with us. To me, like many of us, it really only takes that one shot and you're sort of hooked. So I think that like he has so much in common with us golf diehards that just have this bug that just can just spark. It doesn't really matter what age, right? It can just spark from just this one shot and trying to figure out, how do I do this again? And I think like his nature and his personality and his drive was such that he just relentlessly pursued this golf swing. And the other thing is he broke his arm as a kid, and he had this like bent arm that you think would be a restriction, but it ended up being sort of his superpower. It might have been the reason that he was able to hit the ball straight. So it's just amazing to me. And I just think maybe he's been a little bit overshadowed in the annals of golf. I honestly think that he probably should be a Hall of Famer. He was the first black player to ever play on a Ryder Cup team, played on 2 Ryder Cups, I believe. And he had these 11 wins in his career, but was sort of, I don't know, disrespected or underappreciated in his time, like amongst his peers, because Johnny Miller called him the king of the B movies, which is like, imagine a player today like saying that about another player. I mean, how much attention that would get and how much like bad blood that would create. I mean, that was, I don't know how much of that potentially racially motivated or whatever the case may be, but he just didn't really get his due. But then he won the Players. He won the Varden Trophy in '84, the lowest scoring average on tour, and then he won the Players Championship, which was his last victory. So in a lot of ways, sort of his crowning achievement. So the reason I bring this up is, listening to this story, like Kevin Van Valkenburg, he basically said in this podcast, like, I don't know why no one's made a movie about his life. Somebody coming from these humble beginnings and overcoming all of these obstacles. It's the stuff that we love in sports movies, right? And I tend to agree with him. I'm not a playwright or a script writer or whatever. But I ended up deciding to turn it into a little like 5-song rap musical. And I was releasing songs basically like every day, Wednesday through Sunday of the Players Championship, hoping that it would get a little bit of attention and coincide, with the players, and maybe just draw a little bit more attention to Pete and his accomplishments. And earlier today, our friend Ryan French, like he listened to it and he liked it so much that he tweeted it. And KVV, he tweeted at it as well. So it's starting to get some views and some attention. So anyways, we're sticking the musical at the end of this episode. So we've got Angle Attack with Andrew. We talk about the pros and cons of playing high school golf, which is sort of a new phenomenon. Like some juniors aren't playing high school golf. And then after that, there's 15 minutes of rap music, which is about Calvin Pete. So a little bit different twist. I encourage people just listen to the end. And look, like I know that it's not for everybody. It's really just meant to be fun. There's some clever lyrics in there and that sort of thing. But to me, like if anybody uses it as an opportunity to find out a little bit or learn a little bit more about Calvin Pete, or maybe do a little bit of research, we'll link to the KVV podcast episode. There's a gentleman that did a biography that was on that episode. We'll link to that as well. I just encourage folks to, maybe get a newfound appreciation for Calvin Pete and his career that you didn't have before. And maybe we can just have some small piece of it. Because in a lot of ways, like I think that he embodies sort of the driven golf mindset. And I think he's worthy of that sort of attention.
Yeah, that's great. My wife and I sat down and watched the NBC special coverage of it that they showed before one of the rounds, and she had never heard of him. I kind of knew a little bit about him, so it was great to see that story come to life again, and to look at it through her eyes and kind of see that, yeah, it's like you said, it could be a movie. We've laid the groundwork, Jim. We've got the musical, the intro music. So, and I think I don't know about you, but I would give up a broken arm to hit 80%. Or broken elbow to hit 80% of the fairways. Not that was the trade-off that he was guaranteed, but Yeah, I think a lot of guys would be happy with that kind of fairway percentage. Take my whole
Yeah.
arm, I don't care.
Yeah, especially in this day of bomb and gouge, right? At
Yeah.
55, I think the tour average is something less than 60%. So, anyways, encourage folks to stick through the end of this episode. Again, we split the Limbaugh episode into 2 parts, and I hope folks really enjoy that. And obviously, stick around for the Andrew Lewis angle of attack segment on high school golf. So, Joseph, appreciate the time as always.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Coach Limbaugh, welcome to the Driven Golf Pod. Welcome back to the pod. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Jim. Happy New Year. Good to be back with you.
Happy New Year to you. So we had you on a little while ago, talk about the class of 2025 signings, and I'm thrilled to have you back for a full-length episode here with the pod. I think folks probably are aware you are the head men's golf coach at Vanderbilt University and someone who I hold in very, very high regard. So really thrilled to have you on, just talk about your coaching philosophy, your origins in the game, origins in coaching, and talk about this squad that you got. I think that, to me, I think that Vanderbilt, whatever upper echelon there is in college golf in terms of standards of excellence, Vanderbilt's in the highest tier from my perspective. And I don't think that's a happy accident. So I just want to get into the nuts and bolts of how all of that came together.
That sounds great. I'm excited to talk, and actually, preparing for this stirred some great thoughts in my mind, thinking back on, the beginnings of things and how your journey kind of goes. So I'm excited to, share some with you and have some fun.
Yeah. So to me, I think Scott Limbaugh synonymous with Childersburg, Alabama. I don't think you can separate the two. And I've heard you talk about just how meaningful your hometown growing up is to your upbringing in golf, and just who you are today. So maybe you could just start there and articulate on that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, for sure. Childersburg is a small town, currently a population of about 3,500. It's a paper mill town, and the golf course I got to grow up on was Coosa Pines Golf Club, that was originally founded as a way for the to bring in clients that you're trying to sell newspaper to, paper for newspaper and things like that. So I think that's kind of where my journey begins. I'm a middle child, middle of 3 boys, so I've always had a little bit of that chip on my shoulder in terms.
That's funny. You and I have something in common. You and I have something in common. I'm a middle of 3 as well.
Yeah, I've got I got an older brother Ryan, younger brother Sloan. And we're all 4 years apart. And so Ryan was a great athlete. And that was kind of what our family, we love sports. My dad played college baseball at Jacksonville State University. He was always our baseball coaches growing up, Jim, a little bit like you. And so just that competitive spirit that we always had. And a lot of people ask me like who my people are in coaching. And I've always mentioned my dad, Big Mile is what we call him. And he was one of these guys that was able to, he just got that gift of, we're going to practice hard, but we're going to have fun. And I think anybody he used to coach, summer league baseball and all of these things. He just always had that gift, whatever it is, he makes it fun. And so that's one thing I've always tried to do. I think as a coach, you got your way you want to do things, but you also got to have fun. And I think when you talk about Childersburg, that's what I think about. It's just growing up playing basketball, baseball, and then later on football. But golf was really always part of our family. What we did, me and my 2 brothers and dad, we had family golf matches all the time, and we still do. So. And still my favorite place to play is Coosa Pines. So, it's a lot of fun thinking about that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I wonder if there's something to be said here. I know there's studies done on birth order and that sort of thing, but just being the middle child, because I honestly could say that there are any number of people that know me say that I am the most competitive person that they know. And I can honestly say that you are the most competitive person that I know. You take it to a whole nother level. So I wonder if there's a little bit having to do with just the upbringing, like you said, with 2 brothers and just getting after it in different sports. And sometimes the middle child, like wanting to kind of prove that they belong and want to get noticed. There's probably some deep psychological stuff going on there.
I think there is. I even see it in my middle daughter, Annie, now. She just got a little bit of a chip on her shoulder to kind of, she always thinks she's not getting treated quite like everybody else a little bit, and which may or may not be true, but she'll use it as little ammo to kind of work a little harder or play a sport with a chip on her shoulder. So I think it may be a thing.
So how did that ultimately lead into you, obviously you said you played a bunch of different sports, but like focusing on golf, and I think at the junior college level, and then ultimately I think you were coaching where you played, right, as well?
Yeah. So, I played every sport through high school, Jim. And I graduated from high school in 1998. So Tiger Woods was kind of, becoming the man or on the scene, and golf was actually starting to just become cool, but we weren't, we didn't have like a high school team, but I still played high school golf tournaments as an individual mostly, and in the state. But I wasn't good enough at the other sports to play them in college. And I knew that. I was a role player in basketball, but I was actually showing my boy Thomas the other day. I played high school basketball with Gerald Wallace, which will register with some people, but when I was a senior, Gerald Wallace was a sophomore at Childersburg. And literally over this break, I started telling Thomas about him because Thomas can name, about every NBA player. And I said, let me show you a little something. And so we pulled up Gerald. And Thomas was like, Dad, you played with this guy? And I'm like, dude, I threw Gerald Wallace as many alley-oops as anybody. I can promise you. I mean, that guy was unbelievable. But Thomas is bringing up watching him, on the in the NBA dunk contest and stuff like that. But so my story is I went to Central Alabama Community College, and we had a couple of really good teams, had some good coaches and good teams. And after Central Alabama, I was offered potential walk-on spots at a couple of SEC schools. But I really felt like a lot of that was based on a couple of the players on my team at Central Alabama, like, hey, you help make this guy better. Y'all are close, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to write my own story and knew I needed to go somewhere to keep getting better. And so I chose to go to Huntingdon College in Montgomery, Alabama, which was an NAIA school, and actually where my brother Ryan had played baseball. So I was familiar with it, knew the coach there already, knew the people there from visiting with Ryan and things like that. And it was just it was just a better fit for me to continue. I had just started giving all of my time to golf. And so I was a late kind of bloomer and was getting, and it was absolutely, there's never been a day in my life that I didn't think that was a wise decision. It was a great, great place for me and my development, and obviously led to my journey really as an adult. After playing there for 2 years, I had to do a 5th year to finish my degree, and I was assistant to our coach, Coach Trogdon, who is also the athletic director. So I worked for him in the athletic director's office and was his assistant golf coach. And then right after that, he got a big athletic director's job out in Texas, and he recommended me to the president of the college to be the head coach of Huntingdon College at the age of 24. So that's kind of where the coaching journey begins.
And you're coaching guys that you had played with, like just not too long ago, right?
100%. Yeah, I was coaching several guys that Dan Wolf, Jason Pollock, a couple of these guys were in my wedding. I mean, these are just great guys. I'm still close with them, but yeah, and I've been asked before how that worked, and it was awkward, and it was because I'm a pretty intense coach, and but I also knew, like, man, those guys are not going to respond to that from me. They're my buddies, so they were all in, and we ended up, and not to even mention that during that process we were transitioning from NAIA to Division III golf, and so that was also interesting, that transition, but it wasn't all easy. And I was a little bit crazy, but we had a great time with it. And those are I still tell stories about those teams to these guys here, and some things that I did as a coach, and lessons learned. And, you kind of always have a coaching book that for yourself, stories, I journal a good bit. And so try to look back on like, what was I thinking? And things like that. So, but anyway, you just kind of mature, I think, as a coach. But those are certainly fun times.
And you guys had some success too, right? Even when you were playing there and coaching there,
Yeah,
I
we
recall.
we were we were solid. We had a good team. Played NAI national championships both years. Couple of top tens. My junior college teams won the national championship
Wow.
both years I was there. And then when I transitioned to coaching, at we when I the year I left to go to Alabama, we were actually the number. We did not. We finished third at the national championship, but we were the number one ranked team in Division III. Entering that national championship. So we are very fortunate that we had some good players and some good, just good times.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm sure that you've got a lot of great memories there. I did want to transition because I think that you've got a very interesting story around, I guess, I don't know if badgering is the right word, but like what eventually led to you getting the University of Alabama assistant coach under Coach Sewell.
Yeah, badgering's right. That's a good word. It's one thing I try to tell anybody that wants to talk to me. And I think, Jim, because of my journey having played, I've basically been at every level of college golf. I do think that's a little, so my story relates to a lot of coaches. And I mean, Jim, I bet over a course of the year, I have 25 coaches because they see that my story and they think, like I can get there, and which I love. I feel like it's kind of a great gift I've been given to be able to share that with folks. But I would go, when you're coaching Division III, you basically recruit where you can drive to, and so
Mm-hmm.
there used to be a tournament in Montgomery, Alabama, which is where Huntington College is, called the Blue Gray. It was just a big high school event sometime in the spring. I'm not sure. I think it was in March. And Coach Sewell would always be there. He'd be down there recruiting Matthew Swan and Hunter Hamrick, guys that I eventually got to coach, but seemed like they were on some other planet of great golfers at the time, And they both were actually. Matthew Swan, I think, was the number one player in the country for his class, and Hunter Hamrick, still one of my great friends today, is actually caddying for Nick Dunlap on tour. He's still just a great friend, but a point just being, I would find Jay because Jay would talk to me. Like I'd be wearing my Huntington gear and I'm out here watching some guys, and I'd look over and Jay would be on another hole, watching another level of golfer. But I would always try to pursue him and just ask him, hey, how do y'all practice putting? Hey, what do y'all do every day, coach? Like, tell me a little bit about that. And because he had just kind of started getting Alabama golf, to an elite level, or maybe not just started, but they had just kind of started getting really good about the time that I was head coach at Huntington. And so Jay would just always have time. Jay's a talker. I mean, he makes me look like I'm scared to talk, And so he he talks, and I listened, and it wasn't that other coaches didn't do that either, but at that time Jay did that. So fast forward a little bit, my last national championship, I coached. We always finished probably a month earlier than Division I, and so I was sitting in my office one day, just wrote Jay a little note, just said, "Hey, good luck in the postseason. Sure appreciate you always being willing to talk to me." I was like, I have a burning desire to continue my growth of coaching and want to get to the next level, but I don't know how. And just put my number on there and things like that, dropped it in the mail. Didn't think one thing about it till the end. I just figured he'd get the letter. No, and knowing Jay's been known to let mail stack up for a while. And so that was early May. I wrote that letter, and then I was back home running a golf camp at Coosa Pines, nonetheless, in August. I don't know the date, but right before college has started. So let's call it mid-August. And I had finished, and I was actually going out to play that afternoon with a couple of buddies, and my phone's ringing, and I didn't know the number, but it said Tuscaloosa, Alabama on it, so I answered it, and it was Jay. And said, "Hey, Coach, hey, Scott, I just wanted to let you know that I just opened your letter." And it happened to be on the same day that Christian Newton, my assistant coach, told me he wanted to go back to Georgia and coach at Georgia Tech. And because he had a fiance, I think, that was in Atlanta, so a move that made a lot of sense for him. And he said, I just really believe that in timing. And so I opened your note the day after Christian had told me he was going to go to Georgia Tech. And what would you think about coming down here to, talk to me about this job? When could you? I said, well, Coach, I'm in Childersburg. Just finished my last day of camp. I said, but I can be there tomorrow if that works for you. And so, Jim, I canceled my golf game, drove back to Montgomery, and I was sitting at my athletic director's office when he walked in at 7 a.m. the next morning. And his name was Coach Buzz Phillips. And I said, Coach, I just want to let you know I'm going to Alabama to Tuscaloosa interview with Coach. I said, I don't know anything about it. He called me, and I just wanted you to hear it from me first. So then Jay had kind of set me up for maybe a noon interview, and it was very loose. So I drove to Tuscaloosa, walk in the facility there. Jay's in there giving a lesson to Jerry Pate and worked with him on a swing. And anyway, I just kind of peeked my head through the door, and we end up talking for a while. And Jay kind of said, hey, I got 3 or 4 guys. I really like what I hear from you, Coach, but I got 3 or 4 other guys I'm going to talk to, but I'll be in touch. Well, I've been in my car, get my car, leaving the facility, have not gotten to the interstate yet. And Jay calls and offers me the job. And I guess he just felt like, man, I'm not letting that guy. Not that I had anywhere else to go. I was just going back to, Montgomery. It wasn't like I had all these suitors lined up. But Jay and I are a little bit like that in the same sense. We just really trust our instincts. And he called me and he's like, when could you start? And I was like, now, today, whenever you tell me is when I'll start. And so that's how that began. And so I accepted the job then and there, and spent 5 years there in Tuscaloosa with Jay. And we feel like we enjoyed a tremendous amount of success together. And biggest thing about us was had a lot of fun. And that's one thing neither one of us took ourselves too serious in terms of just having fun. And we were a great, I would say, yin and yang together. And that's what I've always tried to, I don't want people that are like me working with me. That's not great. I want people that offset some of, they're strong. We may have some of the same strong areas, but we also need to be able to relate well with each other. And I don't need yes people around me. I need you to tell me when I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about it the wrong way. You need to have the courage to tell me that. I tell Austin and Brady around here all the time, if you get scared to tell me that I'm thinking about something wrong or a different way than you are, the day you're scared to tell me that's the day you're on your way to being replaced. And I think that's the relationship Jay and I had.
Oh, that's great to hear, and I definitely see that with your assistants as well. We had Coach McGraw on recently, and I think you guys have something in common. You both were assistant coaches under Coach Sewell, and he talked about just like that day to day. In a lot of ways, it sort of rekindled Coach McGraw's like love of the game and love of coaching that led to the book that he wrote and led to the podcast that he has and led to him ultimately getting that Baylor job and just again like putting his full force of his energy and time into building up these young men. I think he definitely credits Coach Sewell for that. It sounds like you guys had a similar rapport.
Yeah, Mike and I have talked about that a good bit. Mike came 2 years after I left, and he's probably a little bit burned out maybe on the job and just the energy. I think to hear Jay tell it, not a lot of paperwork got done that 1 year they spent together, but they both just ball coached those boys right on into a national championship. So I actually listened to that podcast you had with him and really enjoyed that. So Mike's obviously maybe the most respected person in our profession, and one that's never ever not picked up the phone when you needed something, need a little advice, followed through with it. Even like our Matthew Riedel getting through. You remember people. I always think about this, Jim. People that reach out to you when something special for your program happens, because it's ego that makes you think you don't need to. Oh my gosh, look how good they look right now. Or there was maybe 5 coaches that reached out when Matthew made that putt on the final hole of that Q school. And I know you and I are going to touch on that, a little bit of that later, but you remember those things. And Mike point is Mike being one of the first to do that. You just don't ever forget that.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to focus on your time in Alabama, you said you had some tremendous success and really set the program up for these national championships. I think they won back to back, but you were, I think, officially the recruiting coordinator towards that. And I think Justin Thomas really elevated that program and brought them into the stratosphere. And they had a run where they were just recruiting like top guys. But I wanted to focus a little bit on just the recruiting process for a generational talent like JT. And then there's probably something instructive around, junior golfers that hopefully want to get to that level of like what you saw in JT, not only when you were recruiting him, but then when you actually got him on campus, that you knew that he was different in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I'll touch on that last part first. Justin was just, you always knew he, for lack of a better term, he had that dog in him. Like he got a chance. If he smelled blood in the water, he got it done. And he failed some too. Shoot, that's golf, right? But he was never afraid of that moment. And he truly wanted the shot when it mattered the most. And even at golf practices, we do that stuff every day, right? You're trying to create these scenarios at the end, and Justin always would kind of shine in those moments. You don't ever forget that. He's just an ultra competitor. You see that the way that shines through with him still. And things that I think about there with Justin as well were he showed up driving a little old Honda Civic. It looked like it, I think it had over 100, maybe 150,000 miles on it. And he showed up to work and he showed up to get better. I'll never forget that. And from day one, he helped us just kind of continue to set a standard. And, the part of the way we were able to get Justin was, it's just like everything else. It's who am I going to get to play with? We were checking most of the boxes facility wise and all of those things. And he really felt great about a couple of the players that we had signed in the class before him, Corey Whitson and Bobby Wyatt. Now, Trey Mullinax was also a part of that class. And it turned into, I think Trey was number one ranked player in the country at some point in his senior year. But Trey, as a junior, wasn't in the highest level of junior. These other two guys became Walker Cuppers and things like that. And anyway, point being, just like anything else, Jim, recruiting is about relationships. And the relationships there, Jay and I worked to have a relationship with Justin that he could believe in. I remember exactly when he called to tell us he was coming, just like anytime you receive there's some calls all calls are great when somebody tells you they want to be part of what you're trying to build, and some even are the greatest. And that call was one of the ones that certainly stands out in my mind. And obviously getting Justin helped Alabama golf kind of become the perennial power in college golf for several years. And there were just so many great competitors on that team. And some selfish players, just like, most great competitors are. That's okay. You learn everybody has their own little toolbox, and, you're just trying to help them learn how to use those and also fit into the team concept. And I think with Justin, one thing I think about was his dad, Mike, was just one of the all-time great golf parents. He really was. I don't know that Mike ever called us. Justin's every day wasn't perfect for Justin. It did, sometimes he shot. He was National Player of the Year as a freshman. So he did the 1 year I got to coach him. It wasn't a lot of bad, but Mike just was able to just be one of these guys that just, there's my son, and he could stay over there on the sidelines and watch his son because he knew who he was. There was no, he knew he was dealing with greatness. So everybody was secure, Mike and Janie both. And so, that coaching Justin was certainly a highlight of my career to date. One of the highlights of my career to date.
I recall hearing that you had a lot of putting contests against Justin Thomas. How did that work out for you?
Well, I was single at the time, so I would stay out there till forever. Whenever I remember Bud Cauley and I during my early years down at Alabama, Lord, we would putt. he'd call me Cash. We just, I was more of just like a young, just dude with those guys. But we had a blast, and we would just play sinks till the absolute cows came home, Jim. Just out there, you played a 10, you pick out two holes, and you just putt. When one person makes, you swap sides, and then if both people make, you stay where you are, and you just putt, putt, putt. And then I remember later on, Justin and I would come up with like a 3-point shot, and we would go like, we'd be like a 35-footer. And most certainly, Justin tended to clip me more than I clipped him, but I got my fair share, and he's one of these guys that'll always try to change it a little bit. If I back up here, is this one worth 3 points, coach? And I was like, sure. Well, sure enough, he'd cash it. You know what I mean? And he always had to figure out a way to make sure he won. But he never was scared of it, and he never was scared to play anybody anywhere on the golf course. You know what I mean? And there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, I think there is. That's very well said. So you said you were at Alabama for 5 years. I want to transition to your time at Vanderbilt and just like how all of that came together. I think the one interesting tidbit I may have heard, we had Coach Hibble on recently, and I think that you are in a lot of ways in the same boat as Coach Hibble at OU, where I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but almost like a victim of your own success. Like someone who's relatively new to the college golf scene, it would be very easy to assume that Vanderbilt and Oklahoma have been good forever. And, Coach Hibble talked about kind of what he was inheriting in Norman. And I think that same might have probably true for you when you got the Vanderbilt job. And one interesting thing that maybe folks might surprise folks is there are people like trying to talk you out of taking the job. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. Matter of fact, Coach Hibble and my stories are we're on about, he might have been there at Oklahoma one more year than I have been at Vanderbilt, but pretty similar. We're similar in age, and we're close. I don't know that there's anybody that I respect probably how they do it more than Ryan. And he's would be one of those other guys that text me on that putt that Rito made. And so you're mentioning some guys that I really respect here, but yeah, I mean, the truth is, when I was coaching, turned out to be I didn't know it at the time. My last tournament at Alabama was the national championship at Riviera. And there's this, when I walked in we were standing at the Lowe's at Santa Monica Pier there. And, I walked in there and there was a couple of coaches there. And, this is a little bit before social media was as the way it is right now. And a couple of people said, hey, did you hear that Vanderbilt has made a move at the head coaching position? And it was already something that Kate and I had talked about. Like if there was one job that made just be absolutely perfect, and other things had happened in previous years when I was at Alabama, but never felt right. Well, this one, I mean, I'm talking about, Jim, the very second that I heard that, I mean, a glow was like, that's my job. I will get that job. And so, but I was like, I'm giving this team at Alabama. We were number 2 team in the country going into that national championship. Pretty sure Cal was number 1. It was us and them all year long. Anyway, we go on through the week. Well, the night before we were to play Texas in the national championship match, I'm getting a phone call, and Kate and I are in the hotel room there, and I was like, Kate, who would be calling me from Nashville, Tennessee? And I couldn't think of a recruit at the time. Anyway, turned out it was Brant Snedeker. I didn't answer the call. Brant left me a voicemail, and it just said, hey, Coach Limbaugh, this is Brant Snedeker. We've decided to make a move, and your name is the one that I just keep hearing over and over. Could we have a talk when you can? I sent him a text, Brant, thank you so much. I was like, right now, I've got one more day that I'm going to give this team my undivided attention, but I absolutely have the genuine interest in that job. I want that job, and I'll call you the day after the national championship. And that was how my first call about this job ever happened was from Sneds. And, and I had to go through a rigorous interviewing process, but Jay knew all along Jay agreed. I mean, to be honest with you, Jim, this Vanderbilt golf team was ranked 82nd in the country. right the year that before I got the job,
Mhm.
and so and that's not enough. There was also some great things that had happened here and all of that, but it's but my Kate and I would just always talk about how you talk about the academic piece, in the game of golf, a city of Nashville. How could how could golf and how could that not work at Vanderbilt? Like, you know what I mean? And that was a great thing for me as Kate, and that's Kate just had played college basketball at Alabama and just really understood. They had played here at Vanderbilt every year that she loved it here. She would have loved to have, maybe gone to Vanderbilt had she gotten an offer. Like, so we were all in. This what we wanted. And so, I mean, it took I didn't, this was, that was late May national championship. I didn't get this job here until, I didn't start here until July the 5th. So almost, missed a little while of recruiting, but that's how it happened.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think you had the foresight of like Nashville has really has grown as a city and it's been like a really kind of a target destination. And I think, like you said, Vanderbilt with the combination of academics and athletics is very desirable for a number of different sports, especially on the golf side. So yeah, you had foresight to see that this job had some promise, and honestly you've delivered in many ways on the potential that the school has offered. I think over this time period, I believe when I looked at it, I think you guys have produced probably more All-Americans than any other school, like the number of times you've been to match play and had, SEC championships, et cetera, et cetera. It's been really, really impressive. I asked Coach Hibble this as well, because I think like when you're getting a program off the ground, obviously you've coached it at different places and you learn from Coach Sewell. Like how do you start building those building blocks to sort of turn the ship in the direction and start putting your thumbprint on the program?
Well, there's a lot of luck involved in that, Jim. I think anybody that thinks it's all about them is not quite dealing in the real world. I think you catch some breaks along the way, and I certainly feel beyond lucky to have this job that I have. I think I got the best golf job in the country, and I don't say that lightly. And so I want to always treat it that way. That I've been given a lot, and it's my responsibility to steward it very well. I think when I sat in on my first interview, and this is sits the committee that was interviewing all the people that they were bringing in, I've through the years I've heard that what stood out to them was when I told them, they asked me, "What are you going to do to turn Vanderbilt golf into an SEC power?" I didn't have a PowerPoint. I didn't have a notebook I was handing out to anybody. I was just me, and I said, "We're going to give Vanderbilt golf a soul." And they kind of all looked at me like, what is this guy even talking about? And basically what I meant by it was there's no certain perfect little recipe. We're going to get in the dirt. We're going to do things the right way. We're going to build relationship. We're going to love on kids. We're going to find right kids from the right families that are coachable, teachable. But the main thing is, Jim, the very first team I coached here bought into me. And you don't ever forget about that. And, whether it's Hunter Stewart, Carson Jacobs, Ben Fogler, Jordan Janico, guys that a lot of people don't even know who these people are. Charlie Ewing, their supporters, they're like Finn Ewing, that you just don't ever forget. The Toby Wilts, like they took chances on a vision that I had, and then they helped you build the program, and some monetarily with some of those supporters. We had no building, we had nothing, but within a year and a half's time, we built a $3.5 million golf house and a new, indoor, hitting bays. And I mean, what we had at Legends was always beyond special. 36 holes of our own that we got free reign on, a cool practice facility that we've since made better. But all of those things, stand out, and then you think about like early recruits that actually took Matthias Schwab, a guy that could have gone anywhere. He had offers from Texas and Arizona, all the great schools from Austria, but for whatever reason, he and his dad, Andy, believed in this enough to say, I want to do that, and you just don't ever forget those things. Like I said, when there's a lot of luck, there's a lot of good fortune involved in this. But though, when I think about that, they help set the table for what a lot of programs to come. And this has not been an ever changing culture here. This has been our guys don't really leave. You come here and you enjoy it and you work hard and you're held accountable. And that's it's really up to the players to pass that on. I help kind of guide it, but the players have to. It's not my culture. It's all of ours. It's a shared thing. It's not just what I do or what I've built. I've never said I built a dang thing here. It's always about it's the people within the place that do it, because it takes all of us. And when somebody steps outside the boundaries or outside the standards, it's everybody's responsibility. And it's getting harder to do that. But that's another story. So just, a lot of young people aren't quite as confrontational. It's uncomfortable to go, hey, buddy, that's not what we do here. We do this. That's getting harder, but we're still trying to identify those kids that aren't afraid of that.
There's two words. I don't know if you said this or you use this, but there's two words that come to mind, and maybe they resonate with you. I think it's like hungry and humble. I think the combination of those two things, it seems to me, if I had to describe the culture of Vanderbilt, that seems to be the case. I don't know if that's intentional or that's the message that you deliver to your team, but that's sort of what I observe from as an outsider.
It's funny. We've used that kind of those two words as postseason things for a long time, and I would hope you see that a lot from the kids that have come from here. Gordon Sargent's one of the more humble kids that I've coached. He lets other people talk about him, and he doesn't have to talk about himself. And there's a lot to be said for that. I'd say the same for Jackson Van Paris and some of these others. Special ones we've had. I'm just thinking of a couple of the current ones. But you know what, Jim? A lot of that too is about the families that you're recruiting. Like that is that may be the biggest part of the whole deal is getting kids from the right types of families that know, we all love our kids. Shoot, I'm probably too much into Thomas's 9-year-old basketball teams. You know what I mean? I love it. And I'm going to hold him to a standard of hustling and having fun and listening to the coaches. And everything he does, that's the first thing I ask him when he gets in the car with me. Did you hustle? Did you have fun? Did you listen to your coaches? If you did those things, we can operate from there. But to me, that's the level of any of my kids. And that's what we expect here inside this building. Did you give it everything you got till the very end? Was it 76? Was it 66? Let's identify a moment that you kind of let go of your mental toughness or, things like that. And also I'd say moral toughness, like you step outside some boundaries, make a bad decision. It's okay. We're just all going to learn about it. We're all going to talk about it. So, because that's the only way we can grow from it. And I'm not a huge rules guy. I've never believed in don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, do this, do this, do this, don't do that. But it doesn't mean that we've just always gone about a set of standards here that they're expected to be operated by every day. Now, we mess it up. I mess it up. They mess it up. But I mess up all the time. But I also always try to come back and apologize and then share, hey, this is where I was coming from on that. So I just think but going back to your original question, finding these guys, a lot of that it's just about the families that they've come from and that work ethic that's been instilled in them but also being humble, staying hungry. Success can make you kind of want to ease off the gas pedal and think you've got it figured out. And you just don't. I mean, what great players have ever said, from Tom Brady to Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan to Tiger Woods, who's ever had it figured out? It's never figured out. It's always wheels are in motion on trying to get better.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think there's really instructive there. I think I definitely see the family environment and the family culture. Like your family is a big part of the program as well, like day in and day out. And I think the players see that and observe that. And also I think the competitiveness that we talked about very early on, like you got guys that are just hungry and ready to compete. Kind of like what you said about Justin Thomas, like not afraid of the fight. And I think that, what I observed is watching leaderboards and seeing Vanderbilt compete, or even at the Jones Cup. You had, I think the last day, all your guys at the Jones Cup, they were at par or better and moved up the leaderboard. And I think there's sort of like this relentless, never give up kind of attitude that I see, in your players year in and year out, that I think obviously leads to success over time.
If you ever lay down on this team on the golf course, you won't play again. And it's that simple. You want to talk about a standard, and you'll get me into ball coach mode. But if everybody on our team or a coach ever thinks that you laid down because things got tough, you're done. And that's just, and everybody knows that. And you can't have that, because you never know. You're always creating these habits, right? And you're creating what your character is going to be. And I see it all the time in junior golf, Jim. I'll be out there watching, and you see a care level go down. Oh, I'm gonna act cool. I'm gonna act like I don't care. You just give in. I see it all. Like, oh, made triple up. I'll just go shoot 80. I'm done. I'm done with that. There's too many kids that, like, I promise you, to keep building on Justin Thomas. But I watched him one year at the junior players. I don't remember the number. I'm not great at it, but I promise I think he hit 3 or 4 balls in the water on 17, and he had the lead going into that hole. On Saturday, I think he made an 11. I'd have to go back and really look into that. But he didn't quit. He didn't decide, I won't show up on Sunday, or I won't, somehow I'm sure he managed to come back the next day and be stronger than ever, and because I'm just really big on your habit life will eventually create what you're going to stand for as a player, as a husband, as a father. All of those things are gonna, I still hear from players all the time that just talk about maybe a lesson that was learned here that might not have been so fun to learn it in the moment, but they're still carrying it with them in their everyday life. Things like that are really, really why you coach. Yeah, you coach, you want to win, but winning's really it's a byproduct of enjoying championships, or being able to play for championships is a byproduct of all the stuff you're doing all the other times, and that's what shows up, when kind of the rubbers meet in the road and everybody's a little nervous and tight. What are your habits mentally and physically that kind of you've done over time to help you handle those habits? It could be a cold day. Are you taking time to work on your routines like we've talked about? That's boring. That's not fun. That's not cool. But are you? And so I don't know, things like that.
Yeah, that sort of stuff pays off at the Jones Cup, right, where the weather's usually pretty miserable. I wanted to talk about this a little bit, because every coach is different in terms of how they set up practice and how they coach players uniquely or consistently. I was wondering about this whole like culture and competitiveness, how it dictates itself in 2 ways, like how you set up practice. I think there's definitely an aspect of making things tough and a little bit of togetherness to that. And I think the sweet spot around college coaching, just as an observation, is like, how do you maintain a consistent culture across a team while still like speaking individually to each player and making sure that they get what they need? I imagine you've given that quite a bit of thought.
Yeah, great question. I do think you adapt team to team on I don't try to do it exactly the same. Like last year, Jim, our team was, we a bunch of older guys, right? I mean, we had, 6 real good players. And so they kind of most of the time know what they're doing. But coming back from SECs, we lose to Auburn. Is that right? We lose to Auburn last year. Yeah, in the SEC championship match. And back-to-back years, we'd lost that final match. And I really kind of came back from that and thought, you know what? They made the putts that had to be made, and we didn't. And so in my mind, I'm just like, we're flying home, and I'm just like, have I given too much? Have I not created the right kind of moments that we used to build on, And I felt like looking back on that, I'd gotten a little loose on, hey, having a lot of times we'll do a deal where all guys are hitting the same 6-footer. And if you miss, you're out. And if you make, you advance to the next putt of whatever length, and try to just kind of see who, and the order of which you get to putt was based on scoring from the whole practice that day. You know what I mean? If I had a great practice, I'm probably putt. So you get more reads. You know what I mean? There's a reward to it. I really believe in that, and having to do it in front of your teammates. And so anyway, I adjusted in my mind, and I was like, you know what? This couple of weeks we got of prep for regional. We're about to bang out a lot of competitive putting practices, or maybe you're just doing some tornado drills, a little bit more boring, I would say, practices, but there's a score to it. And I really thought that served us well in the postseason. Now, ultimately we didn't get the job done, but I think that's always, you have to adapt to every team. Like every team, you don't coach the exact same. At least I don't. That's not the way I believe in. And I didn't coach William Mall the same way that I coached Matthew Riedel or Cole Sherwood. Everybody's created uniquely and differently. We've all got our bad stuff. We've all got our good stuff. And so I feel like, but you're still, the messaging around what you're trying to be, what the team's identity is going to be, stays pretty consistent. But with each player, you've got to learn what they're motivated by. Some guys are just flat out motivated by the scoreboard. You know what? And that's okay. You go be motivated by the scoreboard, William Mall. You're really good at that, and somehow you find a way to get yourself up there. With another guy, there's just certain ways. Some guys want to be loved on the driving range a little more. They want to feel that security of setup, posture, swing. They want to feel, and then as you're designing these practices or talking about them, you want everybody to have time to do what they want to be doing on their own. But then there also, to me, has to be the more organized. We're having a practice for score, and that's where your stats come in. But me and Coach Edwards and Coach Cody, we're going to sit down and really talk about what that practice needs to look like at any given time of the year. And we're in probably a little bit more. We leave real soon for our first event. We're in a little bit more, I would say, technical time of the year, but we got to get more into playing mode a little quicker this year. So golf swing changes have been made. If you've done any short game changes, putter changes, because really the off season for us, that's the first time guys have had a chance to just catch their breath and try a new driver, or oh man, I've been wanting to try a little longer putter, or JVP's made a couple of pretty good swing changes this off season, and it responded great at the Jones Cup, and he's excited, but he's got to keep grooving that, and just all of these different things. And so I don't just pull a practice sheet out of my practice pile and say let's do that. I think it's got to be you tailor it to a team, but you also, at the end of that, the number one thing is we're going to end every practice with a competition. So that's really important for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did have a question around just the off season, because I think I'm honestly fascinated by the aspect of college golf really being split in between these two seasons, and the fall and the spring. You have this very long gap in between. And guys just show up. They could be completely different in the spring than they were in the fall, because you have this gap. And I think where the coaching comes out is really, they're not in front of you like over this time period. They're home for break or et cetera. But like setting them up for success, like being able to analyze their results over the fall, knowing what they need to work on to round out their skills, and sending them off in a direction where hopefully when you see them and they come back to school in January, that they've made some material progress towards what you want them to work on. And I think in a lot of ways, like the teams that end up succeeding in the spring is largely a function of how well they've been able to solve this opportunity that's kind of in front of them. And so anyways, like what does that look like when you're having these? I imagine there's like one-on-one conversations with players. I'm a big numbers guy, so like does stats and use of numbers kind of play a role in setting up a game plan for these critical off-season months?
Yeah, 100%. Jug, I think a lot of times what we think we are and what we actually are may or may not be quite the same. That's why you do want to have the analytics to help kind of show that to young people, right? And I think, let's just say our fall ended on October the 20th. I'm not sure the date, but we'll have a big team end of fall meeting first. I do that first. It'd be a couple of days after. Just sit everybody down, talk about the greater team good for the next few. Some people need a little break, and that's fine. I mean, Matthias Schwab used to be the world's best. Dude would take 6 weeks off. By off, I mean just without a club in his hand. That's a little bit more of kind of that Austrian diligence, like refreshing the brain, cleansing the mind, and when it's time for golf, be recharged. And that worked for him, where I don't recall Justin Thomas ever taking a day off. I really don't. I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't ever see him at the golf course. It's crazy. He might just come out there and putt a little bit indoors and play ping pong, but it's just something about, to him, I got to touch a golf club, and but yeah, so you have the team meeting, and then the full staff sits down for our end of fall review meetings with each player individually, and we give them a sheet of what we saw this fall, tournament results, stats, everything, and each coach has their areas that they're going to hit on with each player, and we try to do it the right way. We don't try to rush them. It's one maybe two a day for the next 2 weeks. Just to really be able to give kids the right type of care. It's not just a checkbox. This is very important. And like if there's a club that we think, or maybe it's a ball, whatever it may be, if we think there's something you could do in your bag to kind of improve a gap that we're noticing, then we want to make sure you do that. We're always encouraging, got to make sure we're checking lies, lofts, getting with whoever your club manufacturer is, talk about this and that, and all of those type of things. There might have been an attitude talk, like, hey, we noticed this, when this happens. And, just really trying to create awareness. You know what I mean, Jim, about, what habits we're seeing that, maybe I've got one kid on the team that has mentioned this to me about another kid on the team. And that might be a time to bring that to light and really kind of it is a chance to be real, but I think it's also got to feel safe to the kids. It can't ever feel like they got to feel safe that they can talk to us and be true to us. Hey, Coach Limbaugh, I need this from you. Hey, Coach Cody, I need this from you. Whatever it may be, it has to be safe. And, I think that's, especially a lot of time with freshmen, it's just finished their first few months. Life can be moving fast. And you're just trying to help them learn it will slow down. Like I'm watching our freshmen right now relative to where they were when it first started, just so much more comfortable, so much more just locked in than I think they were to get things started.
Andrew Lewis, welcome back to the Angle of Attack. How's it going, man?
Hey, Jim, everything's good.
Hey, man, we wanted to cover maybe a hot button topic. I think there's a lot of varying opinions on this. When I was coming up through the game, you played high school golf. That's what you did. That was your showcase. That's what opened up opportunities for people, hypothetically, not myself. Although I mentioned I was the MVP of my high school golf team and also all conference. But wow. I know you're impressed. I think what you're seeing more and more is kids just aren't playing high school golf for whatever reason. And I don't think we've dove into this topic around the pros and cons of playing high school golf. When might you consider not playing high school golf? Because that's probably a little bit countercultural even in this day and age. So our sons both play high school golf, just as a disclosure, but like, what factors do you think need to go into this decision? And what do you see? I think first let's go, like, what do you see as the benefits of playing high school golf, even for an elite junior golfer?
That's funny you said. I was literally thinking, what are the benefits and what are the consequences of this? I mean, I think first off, the benefit is, golf is a lonely sport. When you're the number one complaint of like why guys don't want to go from college to the PGA Tour is like, it's just lonely, and you hear like the struggle of just being by yourself. So, having a team and being a part of a team is unique in golf because even when you're on a team, you're still playing by yourself. So I think that's number one, is like being on this team, learning things from that you wouldn't if you weren't on the team. Two is the competitive nature of, qualifying, playing, team events. I think of them, especially for competitive, like elite competitive juniors, they're free reps, like especially this time of year when high school golf has started and you're not necessarily playing a lot of, outside of school events. It's nice to have those reps just to kind of go play 18 or 36 holes. And the other thing is since a lot of the kids do play high school golf, you're actually playing against some really good competition because they don't necessarily count against your ranking. So you actually have like better fields at districts and regionals and states that a lot of times you won't have in these junior events. Um, other than that, I think that the other benefit is when you are doing qualifying, like you're having to, especially if you're like the fourth or fifth best guy, like you're having to learn like how to make the squad, which is probably the hardest part of like the transition to college golf. So that is different than like tournament golf, because I think qualifying, especially when you get to college, is probably the hardest part. It's not actually like the tournament. It's, can I actually make the traveling team? Yeah, I think those are the benefits. I think anything to add there, Jim, on what you see as a benefit?
Yeah, I think like even for an elite golfer, say if you're on it and the competition isn't quite as strong, I view it as an opportunity to try to go really, really, really low. You're probably not going to be flirting, 62 or below in an AJGA event. I know it happens from time to time, but I always tell my son, like, go out. It's like, maybe today's the day you shoot 59. I don't know. Like, if you go out this attack, this mindset. The other thing is, like, honestly, a lot of these high school courses that they play at aren't super nice. You could get bad bounces. You can get like, I'm an architecture snob. Like, you can get architorture, we call it, just like holes that don't make any sense. And you have to deal with that, right? Yeah. So there's a bit when you're playing in high school tournaments, because of the conditions and because of some of the strange holes, it sort of compresses the field. So you do have this heightened pressure of like, I'm expected to win. You have maybe these quirky courses where really anybody could win. So how do you still perform in that environment where everybody's expecting you to win? Like, you have there's no real upside. If you don't win, everyone's like, well, what happened to that kid? Like, well, maybe, you had three putts on these bumpy greens or whatever the case may be. Like, you have to figure out a way. And I think that's the great thing about the game is, like, the game of golf basically is figuring out how to get the ball in the hole. Like, no one's really going to feel sorry for yourself, and the game doesn't really owe you anything from that perspective. So I think it's a good way to overcome sort of, especially if you're playing elite high level junior golf, you're playing on some really nice courses. Like, you can maybe take that for granted. I think the high school golf really provides some of that grounding. I think that the game should provide some of that humble pie from time to time.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump into the not positives. And I'm struggling to think about what I want to say here, because I mean, listen, I think high school coaches are great. And I think a majority of them run their programs great. I think what kids run into is when they have a high school coach that thinks a little bit too highly of themselves, or like their role in this, the individual's like sphere of influence, to where they start controlling their schedule so much they can't ever do lessons. They want to prioritize high school events over like major junior tournaments. Those are probably the things I run into the most. And that's generally when someone starts like thinking about not playing high school, is when I think a coach doesn't recognize they have a player that is maybe unique to like the rest of the team, and that they might have to make some leniency for that player because they have frankly different opportunities than the mass of their team, or maybe even someone that they have never had. So my advice to high school coaches is, like, when you do have someone that you recognize is really, really good, I think it's okay to show them a little bit of favoritism, and to understand that if they, for example, get into Simplify and there's a tournament over the weekend, like, I think you need to be okay going, you know what, I understand that this is more important for your career, your golf career, than like playing this high school event. But also understand, like, hey, we want you to be there. So, and anytime that you're available, we want you. With that said, like, I don't think that these kids need to have like free reign of their schedule. I think when you're on a team, like, you need to make it work. You need to not be selfish and I understand sometimes the facilities aren't great, but when you sign up to be on the team, when you're available, you should most of the time you should be with the team. But I think there can kind of be a give and take in that world. Hopefully, I said that as politically correct as I needed to. So.
I would say, I guess related to that, I was thinking about this, like, if a high school coach has a kid who goes on to do big things, either in college or even maybe in professional golf, how much do you think that coach is going to be bragging that this kid came through my program, right? So I think setting up the kid for success longer term helps the coach's resume, helps the program's resume. I think if you leave that kid on good terms with the program, that can come back to help the program in other ways. Like, think about a kid coming back and talking to a current team like 5 years later, 6 years later, about what it takes and the level of dedication it takes to play high D1 golf or even professional golf. Giving back to the program in other ways. Like, I think that there's a bigger thing at play here that hopefully coaches are recognizing and seeing if they bend over a little backwards to help that kid out, or maybe be a little bit more flexible around the schedule. And also, I think, like, just recognizing the landscape around junior golf has changed over the last, like, probably 15, 20 years, where these national events, these travel tournaments, AJGA tournaments, are really the avenue to college golf. Performing well in high school can get you noticed by coaches, especially in higher profile events like the state tournament, et cetera. But they want to see these kids perform on a grander stage against national kids as well. So that's the only piece that I would say. And then one other thing, I think that the other aspect, you said, just like being part of a team, that is sort of a preview for, what's going on in college. I would also say, like, being a leader. I would say these kids that are maybe the ones that are dealing with this decision, you're probably your number one guy or your number two guy. You might be a 4-year varsity starter in a lot of cases for these teams that we're talking about, or maybe like number one, day one of your high school. That could be a very difficult thing to deal with for a 14-year-old kid. Come in and kind of maybe lead by example, or set the tone for what you're about as a golfer, and what you want to be about, and what kind of legacy you want to bring to the program. Like, think about, like, the thumbprint that you can leave on your high school team. Those are a lot of the same rhythms that those kids, if they continue to develop, will hopefully leave on their college team, and some of the same sort of circumstances they're going to deal with, even at a much higher competitive level, if they continue to progress. So I do think these are maybe in some ways like safe practice reps for being in that college team environment, and just like I would say the habits of playing great golf and being these habits of highly effective people, that highly effective golfers that a lot of kids have to hone in college. Like, you can maybe start to hone those in high school and be that much further ahead as you get into college.
Yeah, I think the kids that don't play in high school, they're going to have a learning curve when they go to college, for sure. But I mean, I guess that brings up the next question of, like, okay, well, should everybody play high school golf? Majority of my time is spent with high school players, and I would say 98% of them play high school golf. So, and I can't remember who the coach is, but they always say, high school golf was good enough for Jordan and Scotty and Will Zalatoris. So I mean, obviously, like, you can be really, really good and you can play high school golf. It's not like it's going to suck all of your time away. But I would say there's probably two people I would say, like, maybe you should not play high school golf. One is when you're just super duper elite and your schedule just no longer is really flexible enough, and when you're playing such a travel schedule that you're just going to be missing so much time. Unless you have a really, really lenient coach, it's probably best that you're not on the team, because you're probably just going to cause a lot of, strife with the coach and your schedule and things like that. And that may even be that, I mean, a lot of those elite kids aren't even going to school anymore. They're doing online school because it's just so demanding. And then two, I'd say when you have an overbearing, like, over the top coach that's just completely unwilling to work with you. I mean, I've had some examples of that. I have encouraged kids to definitely not play because at the end of the day, it is more important for a player to be developing their skills than to make a high school team good. And the more that a high school coach can realize that as if these 5 or 10 individuals, the better that they play individually, that's going to help the team. And so like helping them do what they need to do. But when a coach kind of gets away from that, I think that's where kids start quitting, especially when they start noticing when they get to high school, they start to decline, which does happen. Kids go to high school and start getting worse, because they're out of their schedule. So if you notice that, that's usually where I start saying, okay, well, maybe you either need to have a conversation with the coach, or maybe you consider not playing. And unfortunately, there are some schools around here where that is the reality.
All right. Well, maybe we can use this episode as a launching point for folks that are maybe in that category. And you could like safely forward this podcast, maybe the episode before or something like that. Hey, there's this junior golf podcast we want you to listen to, and then your coach kind of stumbles on the episode 39, and they have an eye-opening experience. So we're happy to be the ones that sort of spark this dialogue in a safe space. So
Yes.
Like I said, it's a hot topic. We haven't really tackled it, so I'm glad that we had a chance to touch on it. So appreciate the time, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. The Driven Golf Podcast is produced by Joseph K. If you like this episode, like it, subscribe, pass it on to a friend who might be interested. It really helps us out a lot. We'll be back in a couple weeks with the next episode. Until then, remember, in this great game, the journey is the gift. Enjoy the journey.
Born in Motor City, exhaust in the mist. Another day, another dollar, but the math don't shift. You a cog in the system, that's the factory twist. But Calvin, man, he different, watch him channel the grit. Daddy doing what he can to be connecting those ends. Mama left to find work, never saw her again. Siblings had to raise me, they taught me life's tests. But hunger don't grade on the curve, it just checks. Missouri only showed me a handful of calluses. This ain't who Calvin is, should be living in palaces. Yet I'm picking cotton till my digits hit paralysis. Stacking days in dollars, yo, here's the analysis. 200 pounds of cotton, man, that's $8 flat. $1 for the rent, the rest for the stack. But I've been studying the players, their focus, finesse. Pure hustlers come correct, stacking cash was their craft. Started with nothing, now watch how I go. Life in the trenches, I'm built for the road. Dollars from dust, I was lost in the cold. Never a handout, just hustle and flow. Up, chalk the tip, steady hands never slip. Pool hall slick, pocket change making grip. Angles, precision, the motion was crisp. Didn't know then that the stroke was a gift. But the dice game different, these stakes ain't forgiving. Tables turn quicker, almost cashed in my limit. One false move and the blade get driven. But my partner swung first, cold clocked him with precision. So I flipped the formula, moving quick and it's swift. Pushing hot plates, watches from the back on my whip. Rolled up to camps for working hands, never quit. Diamond man, got your products to flip. Started with nothing, now watch how I go. Life in the trenches, I'm built for the road. Dollars from dust, I was lost in the cold. Never a handout, just hustle and flow. Started with nothing, now watch how I go. Life in the trenches, I'm built for the road. Dollars from dust, I was lost in the cold. Never a handout, just hustle and flow. Never a handout, just hustle and flow.
What is this? What's this game? Never seen it, never played, but somebody calls my name. What is this? What's this game?
They said it was a party, a clam-baked feast. Fish fry, women, a vibe, real sweet. I'm thinking it's all about whiskey and heat. Didn't know that night was gonna change me. I step out the car, see fairways wide. See folks in them polos, heads held high. See flags in the wind, see clubs take flight. And I whisper low, nah, this this ain't my life. They hand me a club, I don't know what to do. Grip feel foreign, stance feel loose. Ball just sitting there, don't even move. But I swing and I miss, man, I played the fool. Laughter cut quick like a hustler's pride. I ain't used to the joke, I ain't used to the slight. So I tightened my grip, stepped back in the light. Took a deep breath, swung harder this time. Then that duff that shanked it, yikes. Club twist wrong, no rhythm, no fight. But in that miss, man, something felt right. Like the world went still in a blink of an eye.
What is this? What's this game? Never seen it, never played, but something about it calls my name. What is this? What's this game?
One more time. Keep my hands in tight, let the weight pull down, let the shoulders unwind. Drop that club head, let the motion align. And the ball took off, man, I lost my mind. Sound came crisp like a hustler's dream. Like a safe click open when you find the key. Like the dice hit 7 when the stakes extreme. Like the snap of a dollar when the paper stay clean. Never seen flight like that before. Never felt touched like that before. Didn't know a silly game could shake my core. Didn't know my fate was set for more. Ain't think of the money, ain't think of the bet. Ain't think of the hustle, the flex, the rep. Didn't need a payout, didn't need respect. All I knew, I was trapped in this net.
What is this? What's this game? Never seen it, never played, but something about it calls my name. What is this? What's this game? What's this game? Never seen it, never played, but something about it calls my name. What is this? What's this game?
Five lessons, 5 fundamentals. First touch locked in, fate grip my palms. Like the handle chose me, told me play it calm. Fingers laced, pressure light, but the will too strong. Swung again till they bled, but the grip stay on. Many laughed, many questions, said I don't belong. Me and my bent left arm set to prove them wrong. Felt the weight in my palms, yeah, the balance was real. Like the game itself whispered, you was born for this skill. One moment, one man, one future in motion. 2 hands on the grip, steady, ready and focused. 3 times cut, but I'm older and bolder. 4th time fighting, broke through in the moment. 5 fundamentals, 5 sections, I owned them. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. Feet set firm like I'm planting my name. Can't waver, no sway, gotta balance the game. Ain't no country club ties, ain't no money in range. Just a man with a dream and a bucket of change. Public parks, cheap balls while the street lights glow. Wore out those old pages trying to crack that code. Drill stance in the dirt, let the footwork hold. Cause if the base ain't set, then the structure fold. One moment, one man, one future in motion. 2 hands on the grip, steady, ready and focused. 3 times cut, but I'm older and bolder. 4th time fighting, broke through in the moment. 5 fundamentals, 5 sections, I owned them. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. Wound tight like the backswing, tension in spine. Failure stack up, but I study the grind. Tried Q school once, got cut, felt clipped. Tried Q school twice, got dropped as bricks. 3rd time a charm, now I still ain't clicked. So I'm back selling pots, moving cookware quick. Jewels in the trunk, diamonds shining my grin. Trying to hustle up a steak just to buy back in. Christine said, Cal, what's this talk about? You came too far, no excuse to bow out. The backswing loading, don't rush the route. Patience be the force when the shot come out. One moment, one man, one future in motion. 2 hands on the grip, steady, ready and focused. 3 times cut, but I'm older and bolder. 4th time fighting, broke through in the moment. 5 fundamentals, 5 sections, I owned them. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. Lead with Let the bass shift, weight, let it go. Ain't no doubts in the stroke, I'm designed to show. Final round, hand steady, last putt, lock in. Ball rolls, time slows, heart drum drop in. Scoreboard flash, my name in gold. Ain't a fairy tale, but I earned this glow. They hand me that card like it's heaven sent, but I ain't pop champagne, it's the precedent. Cause see, I made it, but the war ain't ceased. Now I gotta eat, no breaks, no peace. The downswing clean, but the fight ain't done. This ain't the peak, the climb's just begun. One moment, one man, one future in motion. Two hands on the grip, steady, ready and focused. 3 times cut, but I'm older and bolder. 4th time fighting, broke through in the moment. 5 fundamentals, 5 sections, I owned them. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. Eyes past the ball, past the course, past the peak. This here to follow through, ain't no way I retreat. I ain't here for the hype, I ain't here for the show. I ain't here just to play, I'm here taking control. Stamp my name on the game, let the rhythm stay pure. Only fairways in sight, every shot stay sure. Straight lines, no fade, no slice, no doubt. Got my swing on repeat, I control the route. One moment, one man, one future in motion. 2 hands on the grip, steady, ready and focused. 3 times cut, but I'm older and bolder. 4th time fighting, broke through in the moment. 5 fundamentals, 5 sections, I owned them. Engulfing in life, 5 lessons, Ben Hogan. In my hand, but no map, no plan, just a number on a list, not yet a made man. No exemptions, no entry, no seat at the table. If I wanna eat, gotta perform like I'm able. Monday I'm penniless, entry list venomous. Running with the rabbits, every start is a genesis. Packing up the caddy, every mile got a price. Gas money tight, gotta make this cut twice. No coach, no sponsor, just hunger, no fear. Every bogey, every bill, every maybe next year. Fairway's my fate, only one thing I know. Only path that I paint leads to the stripe show. Swing on repeat, swing on repeat. Swing so automatic, call him Calvin repeat. Swing on repeat, swing on repeat. You could call him Xerox or Calvin repeat. Look, first it was 1, then it was 2, then I ran up a few. Got a name now on a Monday, trying to get through. See, I learned what pressure do when it's setting on you. It either carves you or it crumbles, I just molded the truth. These wins came sudden, still felt like they ain't love it. Like a guest at the table, you can look but don't touch it. Pensacola, BC, both bagged in the clutch. Dubs a crew, am I due? Still not enough. 10 wins deep, still some doubt in the breeze. Still a whisper in the fairways, still a murmur in the leaves. I ain't dumb, I ain't deaf, I ain't blind to the scene. In the role for B-movies, some call me the king. Swing on repeat, swing on repeat. Swing so automatic, call him Calvin repeat. Swing on repeat, swing on repeat. You can call him Xerox or Calvin repeat. 83 Ryder Cup on it. First black man in it. Led the tour in fairways, 10 years given. Low score in 84 Varden Cup given. Still 1 win away, this book's not written. Swing on repeat. Swing on repeat. Swing on repeat. You can call him Xerox or Calvin repeat. One crown, one force, 10 years dialed in, now it's down to one walk. Breathe deep, swing crisp, fairway, full talk. Grip tight, spite might make this my law. Game's vicious, stance rigid, vision enhanced with it. Doubters dance timid, live it cause my stance vintage. Splash 17, the script gets shifted. Saturday slit, gotta flip this ending. I ain't timid, nah, I tell a precision. I painted this vision before they gave me admission. From running with rabbits to plotting my habits. Now popping the tab on a player's medallion. They gas when I splash, said I dash past my talent. He lacks in the flash, let him crash when it matters. Now I shattered that chatter, watch me stagger their tactics. I capture this chapter, history's mine, let's attack it. Let's sing. One shot, one chance, one name they'll call. They'll call. One crown, one throne, one man stands tall. Stands tall. One putt, one stroke, let the gallery sing. Yeah, sing. This is my coronation. Yeah. Time to crown the king. Views vacant, dark road, minds racing. Pressure's adjacent, doubt got my pulse pulsating. Seeping through my skull, what if fate ain't patient? What if I wake up, break up, fold caving? I've been starving for this, no pardon for slips. If I falter, they chalk up the margin of yips. A footnote in failure, now scratch that script. When I play my best, they can't match my grip. Clock strikes dawn, final round in my palm. My fate rests straight on this bent left arm. From a hustler in station wagons to stadium magic. If I capture it, sawgrass forever sewn in the fabric. Let's sing. One shot, one chance, one name they'll call. They'll call. One crown, one throne, one man stands tall. Stands tall. One putt, one stroke, let the gallery sing. This is my coronation. Time to crown the king. Yeah. Step to the box, past ghosts whispering doubt. Last time you drowned out, what you gon' do now? Crowd hushed, heartbeat pounds over the whispers. Gallery tense, fate 130 out in the distance. Swing smooth, high arc, ball tracks, holds tight. Land soft, 4 feet, whole gallery ignites. Just one more hole for my legacy. 85 players champ, simply meant to be. One shot, one chance, one name they'll call. They'll crown. One crown, one throne, one man stands tall. One putt, one stroke, let the gallery sing. This is my coronation. Time to crown the king.